within that 6 month period, I probably did about 15,000 in revenue. And then August just sort of blew up. Like we did sort of 30k in revenue. We did about 35k in September. And I've actually set myself the goal of £100,000 in revenue sort of between now and then sort of Christmas. You know, the network is so good and there's always someone you can go to. Like there's experts in talent management, right? There's experts in sort of influencer partnerships. The mindset training within the course helped me a lot. The industry has completely changed just my perception of life.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. And today I am joined here by Shane, and we're doing an IM Academy student interview today. Shane actually was the second person, second people. No, you were the first to join the IM Academy, but Aditya and Sambhav were the people I was mentoring first. So Shane was the first person to join officially the IM Academy when it started. You've obviously seen on this channel Aditya. I was working with him before, but Shane has been working with me now for over a year. Shane, please introduce yourself, tell everyone what you do, a little bit about your agency, and then, yeah, let's jump in.
Yeah, so my name's Shane. I'm 18 from the UK, south of UK, and I run an agency called PGW Media. We work predominantly with sports brands to help them sort of dominate in the space. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to kind of unpack and dive into a little bit about your journey. But obviously, when me and you met each other, when you approached me initially, you had been running your agency for a little bit before that, as far as I'm aware. So it'd be good to understand, like, what position was your agency at before joining the IM Academy? Like, what were you kind of doing in terms of, deals, revenue, campaigns? Like, it would be good to get a little bit of context around that.
Yeah, so honestly, it was like a bit of a mess. So obviously before I met you, I'd been running it for about 6 months, so I hadn't really had time to get things off the ground, but there was no sort of consistency in revenue. Honestly, like within that 6 month period, I probably did about 15,000 in revenue, which obviously for the amount of time I was putting in wasn't really worth my time. But I was willing to sort of make that sacrifice because I saw like lots of benefit in the industry. But yeah.
Okay, awesome. And what was it that you were like doing before joining at that time? Like, what was it? What was it that like you were trying to do with the agency? Because obviously, in the IM Academy, there's a few directions that we kind of go down and teach. And what were sort of some of the main struggles that you were kind of facing at the time?
Yeah, so honestly, I was like, I sort of went into the deep end, right, and tried to help brands on like a full service and do the whole campaign management without sort of knowing the direction to go in terms of how the service works on a whole. So I was sort of just winging it in a way. And yeah, no, it was just getting sort of really overwhelming. There was a couple things that we did, and the results weren't great, and I was getting quite down about it, and I knew that if I wanted to build something that was sustainable, I'd have to sort of learn the service inside out, and really just provide enough value, sort of take my agency to the next level, and I wouldn't have to keep relying on, acquiring new clients and things like that. So yeah, it was really, really sort of frustrating at the time. But yeah, as I said, I saw the potential in there, and that's sort of obviously when I met you. And
Awesome. And from your perspective, obviously, the IM Academy comes with the price point, as does most of these sort of consulting and mentorship type things. I guess, what was your biggest fear or concern before joining the IM Academy, and how do you think it was like kind of addressed when you joined?
honestly, I remember like when I first joined, I think you got me in the program within the first like few hours. I was just like, I was so down for it. There was never really any doubt in my mind. Because obviously the thing is, like with a lot of these other courses, is the proof always isn't really in the pudding when it comes to like who's actually running the course. Like maybe they're not actually running the business model actively, but you're obviously running the business model actively and successfully. So there was like no doubt in my mind, and it never really crossed my mind like, what if I invest this which was really a low four-figure investment, into a program, and it doesn't work. I always just sort of was willing to invest that in myself and see what came from it. So yeah, there was never really any doubt in my mind at all. And
No,
yeah, it's
even
obviously
even the
paying
fact that
off.
you were the first person to join, you were the only person, and that wasn't even a thing yet.
No, honestly, like because I remember when we first spoke about it, and you were sort of still building it out at the time. So the only doubt I had was that okay, it may be a bit more of a longer process. Obviously, people if they were to come in now would have all the content out there laid for them. But obviously, when I joined, it was still very much a work in progress. So the only doubt there was the sort of timings and how quickly things would get off the ground. But in terms of like the end result in like 5, 6, 7 years time, that was never really a doubt in my mind.
That's awesome. Well, it's good to hear. What do you think are some of like the main problems that obviously you were facing before that you think like the program has helped you now overcome after obviously working with me? I think it was summer last year. Now it's in the time of filming this October, so about a year and 3 months, I'd say, maybe, or something like that. Like, what do you think some of the problems that you've been able to overcome after joining and working with myself and everyone else?
Yeah, no, honestly, as a whole, like every area of the business has obviously just like grown and improved massively. So I used to struggle a lot with sort of client acquisition and getting clients. I used to sort of not really understand how the campaigns would work and what brands would want to see and things like that. And since then, obviously, it's been a lot more smooth. And over time, once I've sort of understood the space more, because I think the influencer space is way more comprehensive and there's more to it than like traditional SMMA. You know, it's not sort of just outreach and building a huge lead list and outreach into them and then sort of closing on one call close and things like that. There's a lot more to it and it's a lot more of an advanced space. But yeah, that also makes it, I guess, it makes it a lot more exciting. So there was that sort of side, the client acquisition side, which I was struggling on. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the whole service delivery side, where I just wasn't really getting the results I was. You know, clients were just dropping me. It was like, and it's a horrible feeling when you sort of put work into something and you don't, you know, you let people down, you let businesses down, you don't achieve what you set out to achieve. So there was that side as well, and a lot about the industry on that side that I didn't understand at the time. And then since I've joined, I've just had a better comprehensive sort of like, you know, knowledge about the space. And yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense. And kind of going back to the previous point, obviously you mentioned about like the biggest fear or concern. Obviously, we mentioned that it's a four-figure investment. Think back to that day that you sent the money. How did you feel? Obviously, like parting with that amount of money. Did obviously you mentioned you didn't have any concerns, but was there any like thing cross your mind about like, I'm 17 years old and I've just paid someone on the internet, £2,000, I think it was, whatever it was at the time of the program. Obviously it's gone up since. But yeah, we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, no. So honestly, I remember it so vividly. I was on I was on holiday with a couple mates, a couple of my friends from school, and I was like on this like terrace that we have where we were in the Airbnb, and I paid it, and I they sort of like looked over to me and like wondered what I was doing because I didn't tell them, and then I did tell them eventually, and they sort of like looked at me and was like as in a way of like disgust, like what are you doing? And I told them that I just invested £2,000 into this thing, and they sort of just like they couldn't believe it, right? They just couldn't like comprehend it. So that sort of obviously when you have people around you, sort of giving you that feedback and telling you that that's not a good decision, then obviously some sort of doubt has sort of creeps in. But like I said, like there was literally nothing. Like I always knew that it was going to come good, and I believed in myself, and obviously I put faith in and believed in you to sort of deliver a good program.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super interesting. You made the decision during a holiday with friends, because obviously I think if people aren't in that online community, don't know that it's kind of like a normal, I suppose, thing, they probably are like, wow, you just paid a random guy on the internet, four figures in cash. But I guess obviously since joining, what do you think has been your kind of overall experience since joining the IM Academy? What do you like about it? What's your overall experience since joining us?
Honestly, what I love the most is that it's just sort of a network of people who are literally on the same mission as you. Like that network is more valuable than the figure alone. Like just apart from the content, that network is more value. Like there's so many young people in the space, in the community, in the IMA that are doing the exact same thing, facing the same problems. You know, we can all sort of share where we're at, and everyone's just so supportive of each other. I feel like whenever anyone's got a question, it's put in and it's usually, answered within a few hours or so, whoever it is. So that's the thing that I think is the most valuable and is the best part of the IMA. Obviously the content is great and it's comprehensive and it teaches you loads. But obviously you do need there's problems that come up that you just can't address, like individual problems. And obviously that's where the sort of whole network side comes in, and yeah, really just sort of keeps you on track.
Yeah, and what obviously I was going to ask about like what part you found most valuable, and you've kind of answered that. But I think I was talking to Hannes yesterday, and he was saying that you guys have like your own little like mini network within the group, like the kind of accountability group. Like how have you found that? Like all of you like young guys. 'Cause I know it's like what 5 or 6 of you guys are all like probably the youngest in the group, like kind of holding each other accountable and growing. Like how are you finding that? Do you find that valuable? Like having other sort of young guys on the same journey, keeping each other accountable.
Yeah, so there's like five of us who are like sort of, like late teens, sort of 18, 19, 20. And they sort of created the group a bit earlier on, and I only got added recently actually, so it's quite shocking. But it's obviously good to sort of really speak to people who are literally at the exact same stage in life as you as well.
Yeah.
as great it is some of the other guys in the community, there's not as much of that relatability. But the thing is, within the IMAs, there's such a range of ages, so it's almost impossible to sort of not find your group. And yeah, there's just it's just a huge help because you can talk to them about things just outside of business as well. Just general life things with like school traditional sort of education system stuff like that. And yeah, it's just a huge help overall, really.
Awesome, amazing. And obviously during going through the program, I mean you've been the person who has been in like the physical, like I guess actual IM Academy since conception first, because the Ditty and Samba I was doing a separate thing with them. Have you faced any sort of like obstacles like kind of going throughout the program, which I'm sure you have because everyone does. And how have you kind of overcome them? Has that come from course content? Has it come from speaking to me? Has it come from the outer group? Is there any like specific obstacles that you face during like actually being in the program as well?
To be honest, anything that comes up, I sort of either get addressed through. If it's like too big of a problem, I'll obviously just come to you and you'll then address it through just messaging or anything. But if it's something a bit smaller, I'll either just put it in the group and then it gets addressed there, or in like or I'll message a friend within the group just directly and get addressed there. And I think that just goes back to the whole point that the network is so good and there's always someone you can go to. Like there's experts in talent management, right? There's experts in sort of influencer partnerships. There's experts who do sort of full service and do the whole campaign to brands. So you're really covered in every angle, if that makes sense. So yeah, in terms of obstacles, obviously, obstacles are always going to come up, but it's just sort of how you handle them and sort of controlling your emotions and yeah, just getting the right advice.
Yeah, makes sense. And if you could like pinpoint like one or two things, what would you say are like what one or two elements of the course or maybe advice that I've even just personally given you from calls or chat or even maybe some of the other guys do you think have been like the most crucial and helpful? Is that like for example, sales specific thing or a direction going just to kind of like pinpoint those exact like things you think have been the highest leverage for you?
I think, to be fair, the content is very, very high leverage. Like you can go through the content alone, and you can the leverage on that alone, like that knowledge there, is just so much to set you off on your journey. Obviously, going back to the whole network point, like that helps a lot. But I think the content alone is really what sort of set me on the way, and put me on the right path. Because before, like I said to you earlier, it was sort of more of me just winging it and sort of learning as I go. But with the content in the course, it's so much easier to sort of keep you on track and tell you what direction to go, and things like that.
Cool, makes sense. Yeah. So obviously you're saying like the IM Academy's obviously you've mentioned a few times has clearly helped you. I'd love to kind of like get deep into like, is there any like specific areas that you think it's helped you in? Is that like obviously client acquisition in a sense of okay, you mentioned before that you were struggling with client acquisition before. Obviously going through the IM Academy, you now know how to do discovery calls. Or like, is there any like specific things where it's like you think you've gained a lot of really useful knowledge that has helped you obviously go and sell more, go make more, whatever it is?
Yeah, surprisingly, I think it's like the general industry knowledge and just understanding like metrics within the industry and things like this, and just understanding the industry as a whole. Like the different paths and things. Like when I first joined, I didn't really understand that you could take three different parts. I thought all influencer agencies just did one thing, and it was what I was.
Yeah.
So that's actually I think has been the most valuable to me in terms of like from where I was before to where I am now.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, there is very little industry knowledge out there, as we all
Yeah.
know, and that was one of the main, sort of motivations I think for me building the program because I kind of just learned over the last 9 years now, probably because I since I started when I was a kid in the YouTube space, just like trying to learn and figure it all out, and then even to this day in 2024, still very little good information or like comprehensive information out there. You can go and search SMA, ecom, paid ads, anything like it's all there. I think yeah, just general like getting a good general grasp of the industry is super crucial to even make start in this industry. And you have two options really. You can either go work in another company to learn all that, like I did, and then build an agency. It's just now obviously taking me over 6.5 years to get here. Or now, obviously, there's that opportunity to get all the information from my end. How quickly do you think you kind of like overcame that problem of not having that information? Would you think, obviously, the program wasn't built when you first joined, right? So how quickly do you think you've gone and sort of now grasped and understood all that information? Do you think it happened quite quickly, or do you think it's been like a bit of a process over this last year?
To be honest, I really felt like I was grasping it sort of earlier in the year, sort of start of the year, sort of going into like May time, so sort of like first quarter,
Yeah.
first 2 quarters. I think as well as you say, because the course was still being built out, there was that whole element of waiting for bits of content to come out. But the good thing is with the content is there's sort of practical tasks to do at the end of them, right? So you can act upon those tasks and then really understand the industry from those tasks, if that makes sense. So you sort of get this constant feedback loop, and it, as I said earlier, it sort of just keeps you on track, which is always helpful. But yeah, it was definitely sort of this year, early this year, where I sort of really like thought, wow, this industry is more than I thought. It's not just sort of reaching out to brands and running an influencer campaign for them. There's like so many other things to it. Yeah, so it's always really exciting. I'm sure like in 2 years' time, I'll look back on at this point and think, oh, he didn't know anything about the industry compared to now. So yeah, it's always sort of just a work in progress, and I'm always looking to obviously acquire more knowledge about the industry as a whole, and just about the agency life. So yeah, that's
Yeah, I
sort
mean,
of how I do
I think it's constantly adapting. I mean, the agency and industry knowledge that I have now comparative to when I first started out, it's so different. You know, back when I first started out, it was super simple to just sign any talent to anything. There was not many people doing it. Now there's more people, there's different platforms, algorithms. You know, TikTok wasn't a thing when I first started, so everything's changing. But I think obviously the point of this program as well is that because I'm actively building the business at the same time, obviously updating content, it's the most kind of like up to date information at all specific point. As new things come out, we drop it in the chat, we can kind of support each other, uncover things like that. So yeah, that's awesome. I then want to jump into a little bit about sort of some of the results that you've achieved, because I mean, I remember you posted sent me a message last month, right, with a really awesome bit of results. So I'd love to hear a little bit, if you're willing to share some of like the financial results. What's been your biggest revenue month? How what are you working on just now? I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the results that you've achieved since working with us.
Yeah, sure. So I'll give a bit more of an overview on like since I joined. So obviously since I joined, I was in second year A levels, and I was obviously it was going into my final year of A levels, so I had A levels to worry about as well on the side. So I couldn't really put as much as I wanted to in the sort of agency, but I was still doing it at the side, just not really optimizing it and putting, as I said, putting as much into it. I then left school sort of June time, middle of June. That was when my last exam was. Went on a couple holidays. You know how it is, sort of end of A levels, and then sort of really focused. To be honest, like middle of July is where I started focusing heavily, and then we didn't do much in July, and then August just sort of blew up. Like we did sort of 30K in revenue alone in August, GBP, which is like crazy to me, and I could see the sort of consistent revenue coming in for like future months as well. And then we did about 35K in September, so not too bad. And then hoping for a big October now. Obviously, at the time of recording, it's the 11th, so it's only 10 days through. But there's definitely like more of a consistent revenue basis since leaving school, and really just focusing on this.
That's awesome. Just to think about how, what, 5 months ago you were finishing up your exams, and 2 months in a row
Yeah.
you've done over 35K as an 18-year-old with your business.
Yeah, and also people like telling me once I finish that I need to go down this route and do this thing because it's not going to work out. So it's obviously like nice to sort of look back and know that I stuck with it and just took the
Yeah.
right choice.
That's awesome, man. And have you seen any impacts of your life based on like kind of like the results you've achieved and like the monetary? I mean, I know some of the guys in the group, they don't really they just work and they work, and it's not really changing their life right now, and it's obviously going to be a long-term future thing. But have you seen any kind of impact in your life since obviously sort of achieving these results, even if it's just mentally and just kind of how able you feel? It doesn't necessarily have to be like flashy commodity type things. 'Cause I don't know if you're like that either.
Yeah, no, honestly, like I'm still trying to process it all at this time because like I've been so used to a routine for like 18 years, 16, 18 years of like going to school, and then like when I don't go back in September, it's like I'm still just trying to process like how to, navigate my routine and things like this. So honestly, my lifestyle hasn't changed. I do sit at home like a lot of days working. I do like to work, but then I do like to take breaks. Like I've had a few holidays since, not a few, like a couple, right? Like in sort of September or August. I think sort of next year I'll understand like where my lifestyle really is. But I think I've always wanted to sort of have this lifestyle of just like time, location, freedom, and eventually sort of financial freedom later down the line. That's always something I wanted. Even like when I was like 16, I just knew I wanted it, which is sort of why I got started so early. But yeah, nothing like major in my lifestyle now. No new sort of like flashy
Yeah. I
commodities
mean,
or
I feel
anything.
like
Yeah,
it's too early. It's too early for that. You got to do a bit more work. But like,
yeah,
keep it up at this level of 30K GBP. What's that in 40K USD almost 30, per month in revenue. If you keep kind of maintaining similar levels and growing that, obviously Q4 is the biggest
yeah.
quarter for influencer marketing and marketing in general. We could see really pushing and stretching to some big numbers, and then this time next year it might be a whole different conversation, where you're in a different country and you're on a different time zone, whatever you want to do. And that's, I think, the beauty of building this online business model.
Yeah, well, to sort of jump in there as well, I think, as you said, Q4 is like so big, and I've actually set myself the goal of £100,000 in revenue, sort of between now and then, sort of Christmas. So that's sort of what we're hoping to hit.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to see the journey in the chats and whatnot. That's exciting, and that should be. Let's do it. Let's make it happen. Awesome. Well, great to chat here about the results there, and about what I'd love to understand and know as well is, like, has there, obviously we've kind of talked about, like, I think probably things that people would expect when they come and watch this video. Positive reviews, whatever. I've obviously given us an interview, and basically probably from seeing the title, is there anything that you think has seen that there's been like any unexpected insights or lessons that you think have made a big difference to your success? Things you weren't expecting when coming into the program.
Honestly, no. Like, I know that's not the best answer, but like I sort of had the expectations of in a year having this not successful, just like seeing some sort of success. I guess the only sort of like things that have come that are unexpected is just general knowledge
Yeah,
about the space and about the agency and about the business. But apart from that, there's nothing really that sort of shocked. I guess because I was sort of running an agency before, right? So it's a bit different for someone if they were sort of to come into the space with no prior experience. But yeah, there's nothing that sort of like just was really unexpected or anything.
fair enough. No, I mean, just curious if it had. I guess, how is your perception of influencer marketing and running like an IMA and doing the IMA business model changed since taking the course? Obviously, when we first chatted, you mentioned about like the three different routes, and obviously before you didn't realize that. So has your perception changed of influencer marketing in general?
Honestly, like in general, as a whole, like the industry has completely changed just my perception of life. That's sort of on a broader scale, right? But in terms of how IMA has changed, do you mean in terms of how IMA has sort of just changed my
Well,
perception
no, just more
on
like
from the
about
influence?
like how your perception of like the industry has changed since joining the program, right? Because at the beginning you mentioned that, you thought every agency just did the same one way that you were doing it, but actually it's, you now see it's actually a whole different ball game. So more less your perception of life, but more just your perception of actually the business model in general.
Yeah, well, I mean, like as you said there, like I just didn't understand any other routes, and then within that, as I couldn't understand the concept of like a manager or anything like before. Like I didn't even know like talent had managers. Like the talent I worked with before on campaigns was all sort of non-exclusive, and they didn't have managers. So when I came across a manager, it was funny because I was actually telling one of my friends this the other day. But like before, I came across a manager for the first time before joining the group, and he sort of asked me what the budget was for this like activation for this talent. And I sort of just told him the whole campaign budget that we were assigned because I had no idea. I thought he was just sort of being rude and trying to be nosy and understand like how much how what the budget is with the client. So yeah, I was just honestly I was just completely clueless about the whole space before. Like looking back on it, it was so funny. I was also like looking back on past proposals I did, and there was one proposal that I did which was like one page with just a few words on it, and I somehow like got lucky and won that before joining the IMA. And like I look at it now with sort of the proposals we do now, and I think how on earth did like a company trust this 17-year-old guy to sort of handle a budget with them? So yeah, it's crazy like looking back at it, but yeah, it has completely sort of just changed my perception on the whole industry.
That's awesome. That's really good to hear. Is there any, or can you recall any like any specific campaigns or clients that you've won, throughout your last year and what 3 months you've been with me? that was like a direct result of some of the strategies that you've learned? So is there anything that you implemented where it's like, that's why that campaign was successful, that's why we won that client, or, you know, proposals that you've done that I've worked with you on? Is there anything that you can recall that was sort of directly attributed to the strategies that you've learned?
Yeah, there was one in December. So last December, obviously, like 3 or 4 months after I joined, it was sort of a full proposal. I remember running it through with you. I'm not sure if you remember, and you sort of just critiqued it and adapted it and sort of made it to what the brand really wanted to see. And then we had a call and then we closed it for 10K. So yeah, that was sort of a direct impact that you had of really like, critiquing something and adapting it and changing it. And then obviously led to me obviously being able to close it, because I doubt at the time I would have closed it without sort of that knowledge or sort of feedback at hand.
Yeah, and I mean, there's this other one that you've obviously sent me, this 15K one. So let's go ahead and close that one as well. That'd be awesome. No,
Yeah.
that's really good. I'm glad that that's obviously that kind of interaction and lesson that we did together, really going through, understand the real needs of the brand, that 10K deal, which is awesome, which is massive. How do you think like the mindset shift from, you know, the program, because obviously I talk about it in the program, like mindset, and obviously, you know, the importance of obviously putting the time in, working hard, not expecting it to be easy. How do you think the mindset shift of that the program has sort of helped you in other areas of life or in your business as well?
Yeah, no. So I think within the content, obviously there is a mindset section, but I've always sort of been big on just sort of staying consistent. Like I've always said to myself, like I'll just stay consistent for 5 years, and then if it doesn't work out, then I don't have any regrets later down life. And I know I sort of given it my best, so I always sort of set time horizon of like 5 to 7 years just to see where that takes me.
Mhm.
I think the shift sort of before joining was like I still expected quick success. Like as much as I said to myself, I'll be consistent. I'll take, it takes time to build success and things. I still sort of had this element of like I want it now, and was really impatient.
Yep.
And then since then, like I've sort of removed that. So I guess it's more of like a childish trait, right? It's just sort of wanting everything now. But as I said, I've sort of learned to be a bit patient more since then, and really understood the importance of sort of value and acquiring knowledge and sort of applying knowledge and really applying yourself as a whole. Yeah, obviously see success in the future.
Awesome, amazing. And I want to just kind of give a realistic view to probably the viewers who are watching this as well, because I think a lot of people potentially watching my content or, you know, listening to us probably think, oh, it's going to be so easy, you know, 17-year-old Shane's coming and doing this, but there's going to be challenges, right? I want to just give a realistic viewer point so that the viewers can understand probably some challenges that they're going to face on the way, whether doing it solo or whether, you know, joining and coming to the program. So what do you think are like a couple of key challenges that you think that you faced upon the journey that, you know, you think the viewers should be kind of expect to prepare for, right, when coming along potentially in their influencer marketing journey?
Yeah, I think the big one for me is sort of just like emotional control and like emotion, like just the challenges with your emotions. Because when it comes to sort of sales, like it's so up and down, it's so volatile. Like things can be so good one week, and then the next week, like you're back to square one, you're back to zero. So I think that's sort of the biggest challenge that I've had, is really sort of like sometimes I'd wake up and I think, look, I hit this last week, I have to do better this week. Because obviously it's never nice to sort of plateau, or even worse, sort of go backwards. That's like one of the worst feelings in the world. So yeah, I think that challenge is like, that's what really hit me in terms of sort of like, in terms of the industry as a whole. Challenge wise, I think for me it was very much on like building a very, very solid service and providing a lot of value, and providing enough value that I can really like deliver on what was set out to achieve and things like that. Because obviously I sort of go down the more comprehensive route with brands, and do more full services with them, and manage whole campaigns. So it's like I really want to be able to sort of build a service and build a product that I actually believe in. That was sort of a challenge, because there's so many different things that come up there. And yeah, that was probably it from my end.
Awesome. Really good to understand that. And I think that's just great information for, you know, new people discovering my channel, discovering this industry, is that, you know, to kind of listen to and just kind of be prepared for, as I say. Obviously, you've been in the program for quite a while, as we discussed, since pretty much day one of me setting it up. How do you sort of keep yourself motivated and decide to continue building and building on top of like what you've learned after obviously going through now, completing the course, obviously working with me for this long? How do you keep kind of pushing yourself to keep building and motivating yourself to stretch even further?
Yeah, I think at the start, obviously, it's the hardest to motivate yourself in a sense, because you don't have the results results to motivate yourself, right? But as you sort of go through the journey, you realize that this works, and then you find something that works and you just double down on it. You just repeat and repeat, and then it works even more, and then you start like putting systems and things in place and stuff like that. So yeah, that's sort of how I sort of I stayed motivated by just really understanding that this is going to be a long-term process. I think just have the expectation that it's going to take you 5 years, and then if it takes you less, you're not, there's no sort of disappointment there. Go in with sort of an open mind. You're going to face challenges, there's going to be problems, there's going to be days where you're probably working till like 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock at night, things like that. But that's sort of these are the stages where you really sort of build character, right? Obviously, once you sort of get past that stage, you really have the results to motivate you. And then from there, it sort of just snowballs.
Do you think there was one sort of key takeaway or piece of advice from the program that you find yourself returning to often?
Key takeaway in terms of within the course?
Yeah, within the course, yeah.
Honestly, nothing specific comes to my head. I will go back through the course. The good thing is with the course is like whenever a certain problem comes up, I will refer to the course and then see if there's like a module on it, or anything that can help me navigate it. In terms of like piece of advice, honestly, probably like the mindset training within the course helped me a lot, because obviously, as I said before, I really had this sort of childish mindset. I was still like, I turned 17 a few months ago. I just wanted everything now. So that was probably like what really helped me understand the value of long-term work there. In terms of like actionable advice, there's nothing that sort of comes to my mind at the minute. I took it like obviously in a stretched out timeline compared to people who would sort of join now and they would get all the content at once. So I think for me it was obviously a longer process and I was taking things more a slower pace, right? So I think a lot of people can make the same results as I do if they sort of obviously apply themselves and go through the course at a reasonable pace and things.
Awesome, amazing. And what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's maybe thinking about joining the IM Academy, might be on the fence or wants to get started? What's one piece of advice you would give to them?
Just endure pain for a year and then see how it happens. Like so many people join, I'm not sure if other people in the course are like this, but so many people join a course and expect it to be sort of sunshine and rainbows from the minute they get started. But if you just put yourself through as much pain as you can for the first year or whatever, 6 months even, then you'll get through on the other side and you sort of, you're set up for life in a sense with the skills that you get.
Who would you personally recommend the IM Academy to?
Personally recommend to people sort of my age, because obviously that's where I've come from. Like people who know they want to build something but don't know where to start. It's such a good industry to start because, as you say, there's really not hardly any information out there at all online. You go on YouTube and search influencer marketing, you probably come up and like no one else. Like honestly, I think I've done it before. I've done it before when I was running the agency, and this was before you had a YouTube channel. So yeah, the information is really sort of secretive in a sense, right? So I'd recommend it to people who are sort of my age, like young, have a lot of time on their hands, can invest into something like this, apply themselves. If you're in school, you can still put a decent amount of hours into it and things. And if you can really sort of try and build this early, then it's literally a path. Like I don't have to really worry about going to uni or anything now. Like I don't have any pressure from parents or anything at all, because they know I'm sort of seeing some sort of success with this. So it's like a solid career path for me. So yeah, I say if you can build it early, then I think that's the best thing to do.
Awesome, amazing. And obviously, you mentioned you've been like looking at like 5-7 years, like kind of like planning and whatnot, and kind of look at things over that wide lens. What are your sort of future plans and goals?
Yeah, so future plans and goals. I mean, I sort of just want to get to a point where the agency is doing well enough, and enough recurring revenue and things are big enough to be able to sell. I don't see like me running this in like 20 years, right? I want to sort of obviously do different things within business, but I think the good thing with the agency and the influencer space as a whole is it teaches you so many valuable skills that you can then exit on and apply within other sort of areas of business and sort of venture in different things. So yeah, sort of future plans is like build this for really another sort of 5-7 years, see where it's at then, and hopefully sort of sell and really want to build something else that I passionate about.
Amazing. That's big goals. So let's make sure you
Yeah,
you get yourself there.
let's hope so.
Lots to do to get yourself to that position. But that's awesome. And just the kind of final question from my end, and I'd love to hear from your side. How would you describe the transformation from where you started to where you are, and just in one single sentence?
How would I describe? Okay, That's actually that's a really good question, one I haven't sort of really prepared for. I think at the time, like before I started an agency, about sort of getting too deep, I lost my father, so it was like that sort of like completely changed my whole perception on life as a whole. And in terms of the sort of the transformation from when I started, I think I would just describe it as like just a crazy journey, like a phrase, crazy journey. Like I when I remember starting, I was sat downstairs. I opened my laptop for like the first time ever, and I just started researching different things. And I could have never expected to sort of be on this journey. And a year and 10 months, coming up to 2 years now since I started. And it's crazy to say that because it feels like last month I was sat on the sofa like researching this and really kicking things off. But yeah, I think I would describe it as like a crazy journey, like unbelievable. I could not have expected any of this, the way everything's panned out and everything. It's just crazy, yeah.
Amazing. Well, Shane, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, taking the time to chat with me today. And yeah,
Thanks for having me, man.
that's everything for today's video, guys. If you're interested in doing what Shane's done and kind of joining the program and following in his footsteps, then there are links in the description where you can message myself on Telegram, reach out, and we can have a chat and see if you are the right fit for everything. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.